Stand easy.
Stand easy everywhere. Come in a wee bit because I don't want the traffic to mark my aching voice. I'm going to start by giving you an account of the Battle of Balaclava. As you all know, we're only 3 days off the anniversary of the battle in 1854, the 25th of October. In October 1854, the Times war correspondent William Russell, writing from the Crimea, reported that an attack by Russian cavalry had been repulsed, having come up against a piece of Gallic rock, a thin streak topped up with a line of steel, a description that would later become the Thin Red Line. Russell was describing the heroic part played by the 93rd Highlanders at the Battle of Balaclava, probably better known as the occasion of the disastrous charge of the Light Brigade. The 93rd Southern Highlanders had been raised in 1799 as the 93rd Regiment of Foot, drawing the recruits mainly from the remote county of Sutherland in the far north of our country. In autumn 1854, the 93rd was defending Balaclava, a small village and port being used by the British as their supply base. Balaclava was of great strategic importance, and its loss could have changed the course of the entire Crimean War. On the morning of 25th October 1854, the Russians, seeing the apparent sparseness of the British defences, sensed an opportunity to make a breakthrough and take Balaclava. They pushed forward, following a fierce artillery barrage. The 93rd, made up of about 500 men under the command of General Sir Colin Campbell, was stationed between the enemy and their target, but they'd taken cover from the artillery fire behind a hill above the port and were out of sight of the Russian forces. When he saw that between 400 and 800 Russian cavalry intended spearheading an attack on Balaclava, Campbell moved his men back to the crest of the hill. For a time there was silence. Finally, the Russians charged, determined to break through the British line and reach Balaclava. With squadrons of Russian cavalry bearing down on them, the Turks on the British flanks fired a volley at random before fleeing, leaving two ranks of kilted Highlanders to face the onslaught. As bayonets were fixed, Campbell rode to the front and called out to his troops, "There is no retreat from here, men. You must die where you stand." The response from a junior officer was immediate and equally assertive. "And Sir Colin, if needs be, we'll do that." The sight of the Russians gathering speed as they thundered towards the British lines must have been awesome, but the line held firm. If anything, the Highlanders were over-enthusiastic, moving forward as if to charge. 93rd, 93rd, cautioned Campbell. Damn all that eagerness. Suitably reminded of their duty, the men of the 93rd stood their ground, and the Russians were met by two volleys of lethal musket fire, one at 500 yards and the second at 200 yards. This broke up the first attack, but the Russians reformed and attacked again, this time looking to pierce the British line on the now unguarded right flank. The men of the 93rd, however, kept their discipline and wheeled to meet them, firing several more volleys at close range. This second reverse was too much for the Russians. As hundreds of men and horses went down, they retreated in disarray. The story of the Thin Red Line is not one of fierce hand-to-hand battle, and it was all over in a matter of minutes. It was an example of discipline and courage in the face of the terrifying spectacle of a massed cavalry charge. Campbell confirmed his complete faith in his troops by calmly announcing later, "I did not think it worthwhile to form them even 4 deep." The 93rd show of courage in the face of seemingly overwhelming odds resulted in the regiment being allowed to commemorate Balaclava on its colours, the only infantry regiment permitted this distinction. And the Third Red Line is remembered in both the stirring march of that name and the painting by Robert Gibb on display at the Scottish National War Museum in Edinburgh Castle. Let us now remember those local Argyll and Southern Highlanders who have died from 1960 to the present day. Lieutenant J.L. Masson, Captain Ernest Gordon, Harry Harkins, William McCleary, William Waldo McDade, Donald Stewart, Craig Curry, William Burrows, Patrick Gibb, Edward Jody Wilson, Patrick Ellis, Robert the Ranter McDermott, Robert Henderson, Owen McQuaid, Andrew Newman, Donald Cameron, William Hill, Andrew McKinley, Dusty Miller, William Bidge Green, Thomas Taft McCartney, Matthew McFadden, Andrew Williamson, Robert Gilfillan, Alan Kesson, Douglas Campbell, Joseph Cummings, Duncan Luke, Ian Elder, Terry Kelly, Michael Rooney, Hugh McIntyre. For all those local members of the Argyll and Southern Highlanders who have died, whose names I have not read out, let us also remember them this day. I will finish by reminding all of us of the regimental mottos handed down by our distinguished forebears and appropriate on this occasion. The Argyllshire Highlanders, ne oblivus caris, do not forget. The Sutherland Highlanders, sans peur, without fear. Once in Argyll, always in Argyll. Thank you.
Listening, parade, shin!